Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today, especially on a weekday evening. But it means a lot to have you all here, especially as we kick off our spring 2025 residency. I'm Shama, and I'm the curatorial assistant at the El Circal Arts Foundation. So this is the first of our residency programs for this season, and we're starting off with a presentation by curator and writer Rana Anani, who's here with us from Ramallah. Before I share a little more about Rana, I'd just like to take a moment to introduce the Al Circal Arts Foundation and our residency program to those of you who might be joining us for the first time. We're a nonprofit organization generously supported by the Al Circal family with a commitment to support interdisciplinary and experimental research in the arts and offer a space for alternative learning. Since 2017, our residency, which runs in cycles of 2 months, twice a year, has supported practitioners across disciplines in developing their research in the UAE through engagement with locally based scholars, artists, cultural institutions, and of course, our audiences. For this cycle, we have with us artist Isa Grayab. Where is Isa? Hi, you're right here, sorry. Researcher Adil Akinci, and finally Rana, whose project we're diving into today. To briefly introduce Rana, Rana is a curator, writer, and researcher on visual arts and culture. Her articles are published in several forums in Palestine and the region. She was the head of communication of the Palestinian Museum, the project manager of Kalandia International 2018, the coordinator of the Palestinian Pavilion at Cannes Film Festival, and an associate curator of the Sharjah Biennial 13 offsite project, Shifting Grounds, in Ramallah. Currently, she's the editor of the website of the Institute of Palestine Studies. And during her residency, as we learn more through her presentation, Rana will be building on her research around the loss of artworks and its impact on collective memory and cultural identity. Rana's presentation will be followed by a conversation between her and Nada Raza, who is the director of the Al Circal Arts Foundation. So thank you once again, Rana, for being with us. And over to you.
Thank you, Shama. And thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the Circal Art Foundation for having us in this brilliant program. Basically, I come from Ramallah. I come from Ramallah with a heavy heart for all the injustices that have been going in Palestine, especially in the past year and a half. But I'm really happy to be between you guys. There are many supporters and between friends and colleagues working in art who've been supporting us throughout. I'm gonna start my presentation. My talk was gonna be in two parts. The first part would be I'm gonna talk about I'm gonna, I'm gonna talk about an article which I wrote a little while ago in 2021 for art journal. It was published in Australia, the University of New South Wales, Sydney. And it's about exploring time, liminality, and with artworks that was produced by Palestinian artists. And the second part will be about my projects and specifically the project that I've been working on, a few projects actually that I've been working on, and one of them in particular I'm working on here at the Circle Art Foundation for the next couple of months. So I'll start with Don't Forget How to Fly. This was the title of the article. And I'm gonna go first to give a little bit of context. And this is a work by Khalil Rabah. Khalil Rabah in 2006 Khalil Rabah is a Palestinian conceptual artist. In 2006-2007, he introduced a satirical project titled The United States of Palestine Airlines, announcing the opening of 4 airline offices in London, Beirut, Hamburg, and Kuwait. Each office consisted of a large model of a fiberglass aeroplanes with a logo made of fragments of airline brands. And he had like 4 clocks on the walls with like frozen time. They looked, like stylish offices of airlines from the 1960s, except that there were no clients. In this project, Khalil Rabah, he Rabah's practice is based on the manipulation of linguistic phrases, and he tries through this to navigate through the ironies of living under occupation and touches upon the notion of isolation. The United States of Palestine Airlines project compels one to confront the impossibilities of realizing such a project. For not only the creation of a Palestinian airlines is out of question, but also the unification of the fragmented states of Palestine is impossible, or so it seemed then. And this project was done or conceived, of course, after the Oslo Accords. And the Oslo Accords, like before the Oslo Accords, there were like Gaza, the West Bank, and Jerusalem was considered among the, part of the West Bank, and the 1948 land areas. But after Oslo, the West Bank was fragmented even more. Jerusalem was separated completely from the West Bank, and the West Bank was divided into 3 areas: A, B, and C. A are is like the main cities, and B are like the villages, and C all the area and agricultural land that surrounds the villages. And each area has different rules like how to move in between them. So basically, so there has never been an airport in Palestine, and except for Yasser Arafat Airport. And this is a work by Hamada Qibt from Gaza. The airport, the Yasser Arafat International Airport was in Gaza. It was built in 1998, just after the Oslo Accords. In 2000, it started operating. In 2002, like 2 years later, it was completely destroyed by the Israelis, because during the second Intifada, it was demolished completely. And this work, this is a photography work by Hamad Al-Qibt. This also part of the series, and this one as well. So in addition to the airport in Gaza, we used to have 2 airports. One in Jerusalem International Airport, and it is called Qalandia Airport. And this was recently, Qalandia Airport was basically built in Jerusalem during the British mandate. Actually, it was built in 1925. And it connected Jerusalem, Beirut, Cairo, Kuwait, Adan, and other cities, receiving pilgrims from Jerusalem and to Jerusalem, basically, and to the Arab and from the Arab world. Following Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza in 1967, the airport ceased to operate, and flights were stopped completely, and it was, except for the Israeli internal flights, and that was until 2000, and then it stopped operating altogether. As part of the Israeli policy, it was, decided to turn it to become a settlement, because it's just next to Jerusalem, basically, and it covers a big, a good amount of land. As part of its policy to reshape the demographics of the Jerusalem area in particular, Israel announced plans to build a settlement there with 11,000 housing. Land confiscation and building demolition are expected to make space for settlement and roads network. The connection, so basically the connection with the world from that airport ceased to exist, and it transformed into a source of dispossession, obstruction, and ever-shrinking geography. The name Qalandia is now associated with the infamous checkpoint built in early 2000 adjacent to the airport site to limit Palestinian access to Jerusalem. This is the poster of Qalandia International by Yazan Khalili. It was done in 2016. And Qalandia International, it's in 2012, an art initiative used to use the name Qalandia to draw international attention to the area and the contradictions it represents. With the title Qalandia International, the initiative was launched by 8 Palestinian art institutions, and later more joined in. Basically, that area where the airport is, there is a checkpoint, there is a refugee camp that is called Qalandia Refugee Camp, and there's also the village of Qalandia, which nobody, most of the people do not even remember that it exists. So basically, these institutions, these art institutions consolidated their resources and worked collectively to promote Palestinian visual art across the fragmented Palestinian geographies and to build bridges with the international art sector. The initiative was launched in Qalandia village as a reminder of the origins of the name. So basically, Qalandia has been associated with the infamous Israeli checkpoint that continues to suffocate the West Bank, disconnecting it from Jerusalem and the rest of the world. However, Qalandia has other connotations that have been deliberately smeared or totally erased over the years. There's the Qalandia airport, for example, the Qalandia refugee camp, the Qalandia village. I'm just repeating. This is the statement that the Qalandia International Art Initiative published. Basically, Qalandia International represented the power and agency of a group of art professionals and artists in creating change. Rather than giving in to isolation, they sought ways to connect with the world. The resulting Binali-type event managed to attract both Palestinians and international artists, and through 4 editions organized between 2012 and 2018. It attracted international visitors and media, but most of all instigated collaboration between artistic projects and offered a platform for young Palestinian artists to engage with international art sector despite the isolation and the disconnections. Qalandia International also prompted international artists to produce artworks inspired by the Palestinian cause. For example, a series of artworks by Australian artist Tom Nicholson, who participated in 3 editions, referenced the historical connection of colonialism in both Australia and Palestine. British artist Cornelia Parker presented a video work called Made in Palestine in Bethlehem, 2012, in which she drew a comparison between crowns of thorns made by craftsmen in Bethlehem for Easter pilgrims with the barbed wire found throughout the West Bank. Swiss artist Oriel Orlo presented Unmade Film, a film called Unmade Film, 2013. It's an audiovisual project on the Deir Yassin massacre committed by Zionist paramilitary groups near Jerusalem in 1948. Another Australian artist, Richard Bell, participated in Qalandia International, presenting his embassy tent project on the rooftop of Al-Ma'mal Art Foundation in the Old City of Jerusalem, highlighting the plight of Australian Aboriginals and the Bedouins in Araqib village in Naqab, both of whom have been subject to continual attempts of erasure. In addition to the Jerusalem airport, Qalandia airport, we have Lid airport or Lydia airport, Lida airport. Comparable to the attempts of erasure of Qalandia airport from the land and the historical narrative, Lydia airport history has also been obliterated. Located in the northern outskirts of the Palestinian city of Lid, southeast of Jaffa, the airport was constructed in 1930 as a stop along the Empire route for the British National Airline, Imperial Airways, and in 1948, a few days before committing the massacre in Lydia village, which is nearby, killing 400 Palestinians, the Israeli army seized the airport. They also seized the town and forced out thousands of its inhabitants. The airport's name was altered to Lod Airport until 1973, when it was renamed after Israel's first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion. Now it's the main international airport in Israel. Basically, Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza are not allowed to use it as part of the segregation policies. So here we see a video for Emily Jacir. Emily Jacir is interested in silenced historical narratives. She chose this site as an imaginary location of her work. Her work is titled Lida Airport 2009. In the black and white single-channel animation video, she echoes a story told by Palestinian sociologist Salim Tamari about his father from Jaffa. His name is Edmond Tamari, who was a transport employee in the 1930s. He was asked to take a bouquet of flowers to Lid Airport and wait for the arrival of the aviation pioneer Amelia Earhart, to welcome her in Palestine. That's the story that Salim Tamari tell, basically. Tamari waited for a long time before Earhart's plane, for a long time, but Earhart's plane never arrived. Jacir, who performed in the video, stands in front of the empty So Jacir, who performs in the video, stands in front of the empty airport building, which appears to be under construction. Then she reappears on one of its terraces, holding a bouquet of flowers. We'll see her in a minute. she's trying basically to reperform the story from Salim Tamari's grandfather. The pace of the video is really slow, and there's almost no sound, and there's the way it is done is like, there's a lot. Yeah, you can feel emptiness, you can feel quiet, you can feel a sense of boredom, perhaps, or perhaps repetition, because it's like. The planes keep coming and going to the airport, and like flying, and the propeller going round in circles. And this generates a sense of the sense of repetition. It generates basically amid the silence and anticipation. And Jacir keeps looking at the emptiness, or the void in the horizon. Basically, her continued presence in the video exhibits an acute sense of anxiety, of helplessness, and inability to control the pace of events. For she's just waiting. She's doing nothing except waiting. And this reminds us with the endless waiting in Samuel's Beckett's famous play, Waiting for Godot, in which Godot never arrives, basically. Jacir's artwork can be seen as reflection of an endless situation of waiting for the unknown, of the Palestinian situation. Her bouquet of flowers, an optimistic look of high expectations. Emily Jacir has also this work. She's done this work around the same time. It's called Embrace, and it's the diameter of this of the work is the same as her personal length, basically, and it stays still. But when somebody approaches it, it starts moving and going around. And also, I think this work reflects somehow the same as in the films, something going round and with nothing on it, just it has no function whatsoever. So basically, something just a time that is spent for nothing, basically. I would like to but just read a little bit of Mahmoud Darwish's poem on about Athens airport. He says, oh, and which which somehow deals with the same situation in the Palestinian case. He says, Athens airport disperses us to other airports. Where can I fight? Asks the fighter. Where can I deliver your child? A pregnant woman shouts back. Where can I invest my money? Asks the officer. This is none of my business, the intellectual says. Where did you come from? Asks the customs official. And we answer, from the sea. Where are you going? To the sea, we answer. What is your address? A woman of our group says, my village is my bundle on my back. We have waited in the Athens airport for years. Athens airport welcomes its visitors without end. Yet, like the benches in the terminal, we remain, impatiently waiting for the sea. How many more years longer, O Athens airport? So this reflects on the lingering state of waiting and this space that, which is similar to the airport's situation. We hear there are a few Palestinian artists who basically talked about this, explored this subject, the subject of waiting, including Tayseer Batniji. Tayseer Batniji lives in exile. Basically, he lives in Paris. He explores the static present and disconnected geographies in his artworks. After moving to France, Batniji attempted going back to Gaza and resettling there 3 times. The last was in 2005. Soon after, in 2006, he had to abruptly leave following the kidnap of an Israeli soldier and the subsequent bombardment and siege of Gaza by the Israeli forces. Overnight, Batniji found himself in Paris without his belongings, losing both sense of time and geography. Batniji produced a series of artworks inspired by this phase of disorientation. This is called suspended time. Batniji used an hourglass to reflect time that has come to a standstill. He placed the hourglass on its sides, the sand resting at the bottom of the 2 co-joint glass orbs does not move. Gravity interrupts the sand's movement. Time freezes. The sand ceases to progress from the future to the present. Instead, it remains static in 2 glass orbs, demonstrating the discontinuation of time and the disconnection between 2 geographies, homeland and exile. Another artist from Gaza, Hani Zurob, he deals with the concept of waiting from a different perspective. Hani Zurob does a series of works in around 2009. And it from the viewpoint of his relation with his son. His name is Qudsi. He produces 2 series. One is called Waiting and the other one is called Flying Lessons. flying lesson. Qudsi has to fly with his mother from Paris, where they live, to Jerusalem twice a year, each time for 3 months. They have to stay there for 3 months because so they can get their residency, so their Palestinian identity is not cancelled by the Israelis. So otherwise it will be revoked if they didn't. So basically, Zurob has a Gaza identity card or Gaza papers, and he cannot enter the West Bank or go to Jerusalem. So he has to deal with the 3 months or 6 months, like each year, being away from his own son. So basically, in response, he worked on these series. In Flying Lesson, and Waiting, Zurob discusses exile, separation, virtual means of transportation, as well as virtual spaces of encounter. During the visits to Jerusalem, his son imagines various means of connection with his father by acquiring different transportation toys to recompense their parting. The father attempts to overcome this separation by suggesting imaginative spaces of encounter. Attempts to traverse the separation wall are strongly present in the artworks, while the layers of colors and lines on the canvas emphasize emotional and material barriers. Another artist who touched upon the notion of waiting is Tariq Hussein. This is the first of his series, self-portrait, produced in 2002. Tariq Hussein was born in exile. He is a Palestinian. He was born in Kuwait. His parents are Palestinians living in exile as well. So basically, Tariq Hussein, he's standing in just next to the Dead Sea in Jordan, and he's looking to Palestine. He's wearing a kufiyyah, and there was a story about it because in 2002 there was the Intifada erupted, and I think people became a little bit in the West hostile towards the kufiyyah. Not as much as these days, but a little bit less. And but he found out because he was wearing a kufi in Jordan, just looking at Palestine. He was confronted by police officers saying, like, what you're doing here, wearing a kufi and all of that. So basically, he thought that people are, even in the Middle East, are just like they're viewing kufiyyah in a different way. The perception of kufiyyah is changing a little bit. So basically, he started a series of photography exploring that, just putting that kufiyyah on and presenting himself in situations to check how would people react to his presence. We're talking, when we talk about waiting, Raida Saade comes to, we remember at once Raida Saade. She has a number of performances, artworks that touch the notion. And here we see her sitting, that was in 2010, a long time ago. sitting on the rubble of a house and knitting, and we can see a huge ball of like yarn just next to her, which which gives us like an idea of how long she'll be sitting there, in a sense. So she's waiting, and nobody knows what she's waiting for. But because she's sitting on the rubble, you can expect that she's waiting for a savior, basically waiting for somebody just to save her from the situation she's living in. Yara Hawari actually wrote about this, writing about imagining the future of Palestine. Analyst and writer Yara Hawari explains that by facing a constant process of erasure, Palestinians find themselves in a situation in which their past and their futures are denied. They are locked in a continuous present in which the settler colonial power determines temporal and spatial boundaries. Hawari places emphasis on this by suggesting that in seeking to control perceptions of reality, the settler colonial project aims to bind indigenous and colonized people in a seemingly perpetual state of being or normalized stasis. Imagining a future beyond this state is thus a rebellious and radical act. Act is by no means an easy one. We have here as well, like, just touched on Muna Hatoum. Muna Hatoum's work from 2006, 2008. It is called titled Waiting is Forbidden. ممنوع الانتظار. Well, basically, the blue enamel sign in Arabic and English is similar to the signs found on the streets, giving directions to passerby. Not only does this work symbolize the state of waiting in the Palestinian case, as time has taken possession of them, but it's also a clear invitation against subordination to the present, or that's how I interpret it. Not maybe she's it in a different way. It can be understood as a warning against accepting the status quo, waiting to return home in the case of millions of Palestinians in the diaspora and refugee camps, or waiting for home to return in the case of millions of Palestinians living in the occupied Palestine. Waiting has become integral to the Palestinian condition since 1948, and this is when Hatoum's work gives directions: do not wait, it is forbidden. Since the genocide started in Gaza, I have to say that the sense of waiting continued into this phase of time. Like it started in the 1948, but it's also continuing. And I have to say that many of us we find ourselves even in Palestine and not knowing what to do, and just waiting and looking at things as they are. Although there were like many initiatives and that were done during the past year and a half, but and I'm talking in specific about art, the art scene. Here I want to show like Elias Sliman's divine intervention, just a little bit.
اسمع انت شمالي انت شمال سجور ادي بكيت يلا بسرعه بسرعه انا دي بقى خنخان كنيسه
Divine Intervention is a film that by Sliman, and it was produced in 2002. And this is just a footage, just a short footage to show the concept of waiting. Well, basically, Elias Liman he lives on one side of the border, and the border, like in Jerusalem, and his girlfriend lives in the West Bank, and they cannot meet because there is this checkpoint, and he has this scene about it.
יגאל. מה? יגאל! מה? אוכל!
This is just Elias Liman suggesting how just handle waiting basically. Yeah, so by this we come to an end for the first part. The second part of the talk would be about my work. I was asked to introduce myself, basically, with what I've been doing in the past. So I'm gonna go flick through things that my projects so far. It's like I selected a few things to share with you. Well, basically, this is Emerging to the Light, Al-Khuruj ila Noor. This is Nabil Anani's memoir, which I edited and work closely with the artist to produce it. This is another publication, Ana wal Ard, The Land and I. It's the works of Nabil Anani, Landscape. And so I curated the book, and we had, like most of the landscape work that he produced over 50 years of his career, basically integrated in this book. I'm currently working on artist Sliman Mansour's memoirs, and they are about to be published. They're in the pre-press production. So I've been working on that. Like I basically conducted several interviews, in-depth interviews with Sliman Mansour over a couple of years, and basically we went, well, I rewrote them and just reviewed them, and back and forth, and basically they're about to come out. Well, for my curatorial work, the last exhibition I curated was an exhibition called Control Anatomy by Mahmoud El-Haj. Mahmoud El-Haj is from Gaza. He's now basically settled in France, and he works in digital art, and basically the way he works on, he explores how the colonial violence through the mechanism of domination, and how Israel is trying to control the population, or used to before the genocide even. So most of his work was produced before the genocide, but it can, there's a big relation between what you can see how things evolved. Yani looking at his work, you can see how things evolved with the Israeli policy. The good thing about Mahmoud is, like, you know, he produces digital work because of his, because he lives in Gaza, and he took a decision basically not to produce artworks, physical artworks, because they get destroyed. Or he's, like, you know, for several times he was banned to take his artworks out through the border. So he decided to produce art through his computer, and take his computer with him instead. And he managed to save his computer this time in the last minute, before he was able to leave. He was able to leave Gaza after a few months of living or witnessing the genocide. This is another exhibition that I curated in Ramallah, and this was Ma'rad al-Rabi', the spring exhibition, and it included the work of 28 young artists, and it's basically the name comes from an exhibition that used to be that was organized in the 1980s in Palestine by the Palestinian Artist League. And the reason being is Nabil Anani and Sliman Mansour were involved in this exhibition, as they personally offered an award for the, for 3 artists from just at the end of the exhibition, financial award, and that was a way to encourage Palestinian young artists. And most of the artists who participated in this exhibition did not have the chance to exhibit before. So many of them used to work. They worked for a few years, but they were not able to have their work exhibited. And Isa, my colleague, my friend, helped in this exhibition as well. Was part of the jury for selection. And we were hoping to have this exhibition like every year, but then the situation at the moment does not allow. But we have to think of it in different ways, especially that it connects Palestinian artists from different Palestinian geographies. And this is a work by the cover is a work by Palestinian, a Syrian artist from the occupied Syrian Julan. And we had artists from Gaza, artists from the 1948 Jerusalem, of course, and the West Bank. This is another exhibition that I curated, and for Shada Safadi and Akram Halabi. They're both from occupied Syrian Julan, and we're trying to do these connections between Palestinians and Palestinian artists or Palestinian art scene and the art scene in the Golan Heights, because they're like, you know, going under the same circumstances as us, and basically in this exhibition that we organized in Ramallah, it was like about the narratives from the Jolan Heights, which is like it's to do the community there is more like a farmers community, and their stories are very connected to the land and the agricultural you know, just the farming and all of that. But it's Shada Safadi was on the residency 2 years ago. So basically, yeah, I'll go this through quickly. This is another exhibition I curated in Beirut on prisoners. And these are like, you know, curated. I was involved in Qalandia International 2018, the Solidarity version, and Sharjah Art Foundation, Sharjah Binali in Palestine, Shifting Grounds in 2017. Also, yeah, these are some of my articles. This amazing images in Barjil Art collection, which I borrowed. And the other one is for Tayseer Batniji. And it's the first one is this one in Arabic, but it's about solidarity with Gaza and the cancellation of exhibitions around the world. And this is the project I'm working on at the moment. It's about it started in 2014 when basically I tracked 17 lost art exhibitions through my work at the Palestinian Museum, and basically was able to like I did interviews with many artists. Some of them like Samir Salame, for example, are not with us anymore. And basically I'm following all the stories. So I produced an article as well, relevant about the loss of artworks through the Palestinian history and how to look at the Palestinian art history through from this lens. These are more articles that I wrote recently, which is to do with some of them with solidarity. And this is finally this is a project that I was working on with the Institute for Palestine Studies, and it is like documentation of the destruction of the cultural sector in Gaza through interviews and researchers on the ground. Finally, this is just my work at the Palestinian Museum. The family album is a project that is dear to my heart. I started it in 2014 at the Palestinian Museum, and it is based on collecting images from people's family albums and digitizing them and returning the original images to their owners, and the reason being the archives in Palestine are so under danger, and they're vulnerable, and if they were like collected in one place, it's easier to target them. So we thought, we'll keep, it's better to keep the albums in the people's scattered around, like, with the people's in people's homes. So basically, I'll end with this. Yeah, because I have this connection with archives as well that I'm trying to develop in my residency here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rana. And thank you to this patient audience. I just wanted to get a sense of how many questions there are in the room, because really what I wanted to do was moderate rather than have a conversation, because I have plenty of time to talk to Rana while she's here. So I think what I'll do is kick off the Q&A. But before we dive into that, I guess the thought that I had while listening to you, Rana, was, and it was actually a line from the Dervish poem, this question of waiting impatiently, right? And I think there is something interesting about, this question of patience, and I guess several generations who have been forced into this position of needing to be patient, but actually, does waiting imply patience or impatience is a question that I was thinking about. And where does then, if you look at this kind of emancipatory potential in the Elia Suleiman scene, this question of where does then the impatience lead you? And what that means also for the creative urge, Because we, as we saw, I guess, in projects that we've done here recently, this question of needing to resist ideas of loss and destruction with stories of reclamation and survival. These are all things that we are individually and collectively doing. But I think in the present moment, I really like that idea that you said about the family album, this question of things being both collected and dispersed simultaneously. It was also interesting to hear about the artist who is only making digital work as a way of resisting this kind of impermanence of the object, right? So I thought as we get into the Q&A, it might be interesting to think more about what then happens in the role of the curator and the researcher. Like, how do we represent that refusal to wait?
Yeah, it's a difficult question.
Should we open up to the audience? You want to take some time to think about that? So we had a question at the front, and then a mic will come around. Sultan.
Thank you, Rana. Fantastic talk. I was also going to mention a couple of works by Asim Abu Shaqra, the Palestinian artist from al-Faham, who depicted the plains above a Palestinian landscape, sometimes barren, but there's an antagonistic relationship with the plains that are hovering, mostly because they are mainly enemy aircraft that could be attacking at any moment. But my question though is about Sliman Mansour. In what language will the publication come out? And also you said that you spoke to him over 2 years. So my question is, what is one thing that you learned about him towards the end that it took you so long for him to open up to you about towards this long process?
Yeah, basically for Asim Abu Shaqra. I mean, there are if we look carefully, I mean, this theme is present a lot in the Palestinian art. For Sliman Mansour, the book will be in Arabic initially. I hope it will be translated into English. It was a pleasure actually working with him, and just it took a long while just to well, I just like I feel well. I know Sliman Mansour from when I was little, actually, because he's a friend of my father, basically. So, but I didn't know him well until I interviewed him, and many aspects of his character appeared suddenly. His love of life, his character, how he acts, basically, I was completely surprised about his childhood. I never knew that he went through tough childhood. His father died when he was 4 years old, and as well as his grandfather, both died almost at the same time, and they were like, the main source of income for the family. So they were about 6 children, and they were left with the mother basically to care of. So it's a difficult childhood that he went through. Doesn't appear on his like when you see him, he's lively. He always laugh, and just difficult to. But he's very secretive. Like he keeps things to himself. Even his. He was telling me that his son, he was one of the draft he was laying on the table, and his son took it and he was reading it. And he said that he was, his son was in tears like after he finished, and that wasn't the whole the draft of the whole book, but it was like partly of it about the childhood, because he doesn't say much about it.
Hello, thank you for a great talk. I was really captivated by the Don't Forget How to Fly work that you covered at the beginning. And it's made me think whether you came across any work, maybe more contemporary work, that talks about the contrast between, the Ben Gurion airport, who gets to access that, versus how Palestinians who don't have Israeli citizenship are forced to travel through the crossings and through checkpoints, etc., by foot. A lot of times now we see by force. And so I'm just wondering if there's any sort of work that provides that contrast.
I can't think of something in particular that deals with it, but I mean there are many works that deals with it in a more general view. Like, for example, I remember an artwork for Yazan Khalili, for example, who depicted the different ID cards of Palestinians in different colors, because just like each Palestinian, depending on where they live, they have different ID card and different color that at certain point, like the Israelis would like to just basically recognize from far away. So documents colors are different. So he did that, I think, like large on large scale, yeah, this is this comes to mind straight away.
There have been several works dealing with the checkpoint itself as a theme.
With the checkpoint, there are like many works dealing with a checkpoint as a theme. Yes. What comes to mind is, for example, I don't know. Yeah. Oh yeah, cheek point. Yeah,
Yes.
this is for Sharif Waked. It's a video who did like a whole line of fashion especially for checkpoints, where you can show your belly basically, and so that you don't have to take just take your just what you're wearing up, so they see that you don't have I don't know, just explosives or anything like that. So it's a very interesting work, Sharif Wakid's video. For your question, Nada, I think it's a big question actually, and I always think about it, and definitely researchers and artists and curators have a big role. But just with the political situation changing all the time, one has to think about it as well, like, what is the most important. Like now, for at the moment, just resilience is, just the best thing, just to do. Like if you're in Gaza, just you can't do much actually. And it's perhaps our role is like, just to to work, just to give them, to give people the hope of, there is a better future. A better future will definitely exist. It's not easy. It's not an easy role, especially through arts, because in time of war, I don't know, the role of art becomes marginal in a way, but when things settle down, it becomes different.
That's true. And I was thinking actually about your, this don't forget how to fly, this question of liminality and in-betweenness that's associated with airports. But obviously, there's a lot of irony in these works. There's this kind of tension between not just arrival and departure, but this question of uncertainty, right, that just stays. And I think Emily Jacir's work is particularly powerful in that, because it really makes you experience that frustration. But I do feel like, especially being in a city like this, I mean, there's also this very direct contrast between the role of airports in the cities we are in. And I think I was also just very struck by that contrast of just trying to think about what it would mean to not be able to access an airport. It's something a lot of us take for granted, right? And I think the strength of it's an article, but it would be interesting even in the form of an exhibition, because I think it somehow really exemplifies this oppression, and it's I think, the lack of freedom of movement, yes, we I guess maybe in an abstract way can understand, but there's such a direct relation between flight and freedom that metaphorically I think it's very powerful. Do we have more audience questions? Thoughts? Works that you think were not included that should have been a part of it? No, I mean, these are meant to be very informal, just for the residents. These discussions are very informal in a way of you guys actually just getting to know who's here and what they're working on, and be able to contribute. And, hopefully further meetings will come out of this conversation.
Maybe following your comment about airports, like I think in Palestine, and it's the case that maybe the only case that I can recall about to say that once we had an airport, once we had a rail, a Hijazi rail, once we had in terms of transportation. So I think it's in and the scattered, like what Rana mentioned. It's it has this like a reflection on the past, and a lot of like these structure were built on or the Ottomans or the British mandate in Palestine. So I think it's a unique case in which we reflect on once we had and once the communication was, like my grandfather was dining in Beirut or going to Alexandria or Al Arish. So and nowadays, like traveling, it's a huge deal for Palestinians, and every group has their own like a complicity with the traveling, and also the cars are with the plates are restricted to certain areas, and so the whole mobility and the infrastructure is something like I think it's an exhibition or a publication or it's something that I think Palestinian artists tried and somehow to also to tell their own story as like I see Jacir work as her being not only a Palestinian but also being an artist, and being an artist, being a researcher is like you have to also travel, and sometimes yani, you this is you have a total blockade in this section of traveling or going, and now we are dealing with a lot of artists are who flow from Gaza, and it's a different whole situation. Like I think it's a maybe it's like a sad reality, but it was like there was some sort of hope, you know. You mentioned the Oslo Accord and back then, and today the reality back then is totally different.
Can I say the title kind of gives me the impression, don't forget how to fly. There is the impression that you will need this skill in the future. Is this, yeah.
Somehow it's hopeful, like, you know, it gives some hope. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the transport in Palestine is something that was tackled by Palestinian artists a lot, actually, and will continue to, because it's only getting more difficult and more isolated. Like back then when Khalil Rabah did his work, it wasn't, although the fragmentation was starting, like, you know, in the West Bank itself, like, you know, in comparison to today, it's like, yeah, I mean, there's no comparison to today. Today is far more fragmented and separated. People cannot move. You know, we have like generations of children and young people who do not, who've never been to Jerusalem, for example. They don't know how Jerusalem looks. They live nearby, but they don't know how, because they're not allowed to go there.
I had a question about the Qalandia International, and I guess, forgive my ignorance, I guess people here may know the answer to this question. But has there been a hard stop to it, or is it a pause? Like, does the organization still exist, or did it become impossible to continue?
The organizations still exist, but it stopped during COVID, but didn't carry on. Basically, after the Oslo Accords, the art institutions and the cultural institutions got so much funding. There were no art institutions before. Like if they existed, they were like more like community-based institutions, not big institutions. But after the Oslo Accords and all the funding, these institutions started like to, just to grow in numbers. But during Qalandia International, that's when it started in 2012. That's when the funding almost stopped. So they put all this money in the art culture and then in the art and culture sector, and then the scene, and then the international donors stopped funding. So that's when they decided, all these institutions, to come together to just to see what they can do with their resources. It continued 4 editions, and then after that, I think there were like, just the situation was, the whole situation was different. Some of the institutions now are almost closed, but they still exist. They have like one employee or two mainly, but generally art institutions are not very functional at the moment. Like, we have two big institutions, and there was like, imbalance, I would say. Like, all the funding went to two institutions. They grew very big, and the rest went towards the back somehow. And that was one of the reasons maybe why Columbia International stopped, because at the beginning, like, we used to sit on one table, like everybody the same, but then, like, more people were like, with big institutions were more like in control. So this imbalance stopped it, I would say.
Any last thoughts, questions? We can continue to eat and chat informally afterwards. Yeah? Any? No? Okay. Thank you so much, Rana.
Thank you, Nada. Thank you all.